How is the business doing today? Like, let's just say in terms of gross sales, what kind of numbers are you putting up on it in an average month?
In an average month, I am doing about $13,000 to $15,000 in sales. Profit-wise, around $10,000 to $11,000.
I'm sure you've looked around the groups, you've looked around the room, and you've kind of noticed that, like, the other people that are doing in the couch flipping game, they don't look like you, that you're different from the average couch flipper. So how do you feel about, like, being, like, one of the few female flippers out there?
And I had a guy look me in the face. He just told me that I could not lift this couch up and I wasn't going to get it out of the house.
For all the women out there who are interested in getting into the game, or all the other 16-year-old young people that are interested in getting to the game, what would some advice be for them from someone that has been in their shoes?
I mean, it might seem cliche a little bit, but I would just really say
Do you dream of being the undisputed top couch flipper in your market? Hard work alone won't get you there. The secret? Working smarter, not just harder. Enter Ivy Flip. You're listening to our podcast to get the cutting edge when it comes to tactics for running your flipping business. So why not also have the cutting edge when it comes to technology for your couch flipping empire? Ivy Flip has the best sourcing app for couch flippers in the world. With Ivy Flip, you won't have anxiety about missing a couch deal. We will work 24 hours a day to notify you as soon as the deals you're after are posted, meaning you'll get there before your competition and with a fraction of the effort. And right now, we are offering a 1-week free trial to new users. Try it out before it's too late. Just search Ivy Flip in the iOS App Store or the Google Play Store now, or click the link in bio.
Welcome to a new edition of the CouchPod. Today, I have Kaprese Banks, based out in Lincoln, Nebraska. Thank you so much for joining us today. Why don't you go ahead and give our audience a little bit of an introduction to who you are?
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Kaprese Banks. I am 19 years old. I do couch flipping full-time / part-time. I am in college, but I have enough time in my schedule where this is my only source of income.
So Kaprese, I would say you are kind of unique when I think about the other couch flippers I know, in that you are quite young, 19 years old, and doing this to support yourself through college and through life in general, but also in that you are a woman. I would say 99% of couch flippers that I know tend to be men, I think, because this is so physically demanding. And I'm sure our audience would be curious to hear a little bit about your background, like how you heard about couch flipping and what got you interested, starting to flip couches.
So I was 16 years old when I first found out about couch flipping. It was during COVID when everybody was kind of isolated. My mom was high risk, so personally I was not able to go out and see friends or really do anything with my time. And I'd watched a lot of YouTube, and I kind of fell in love with learning about business. And I saw somebody doing this on YouTube, and my stepdad had a work truck. I didn't have my license at the time, so I scrolled on Facebook Marketplace and I found a free sectional. I asked him if we could go pick it up. I staged it in my driveway, and I ended up selling it about a week later for $600. And at the time, being 16, being so isolated for so long, not being able to work, that was like a real eye-opener for me, seeing that I could make $600 from a free couch that I picked up and did very light cleaning on. So after that, COVID kind of slowed down. I got a job working at a local grocery store. I saved up every penny to buy my first truck. And ever since then, it's kind of expanded into what it is now.
So in between that first flip and you working at that grocery store, were you still flipping with the assistance of your stepdad, or was that sort of just a one and done thing?
It was sort of a one and done thing. His work truck was pretty old, so it broke down. I would do flips. I would go to garage sale and flip things to earn a little bit extra cash. But until I got my first truck, after that, I didn't flip a couch. But I knew there was potential in doing so.
That's awesome. And that's a pretty bold undertaking for someone so young. Go start working, presumably like a minimum wage job, save up all that cash, and first thing you do is invest it into a truck. So how much was that first purchase? What kind of truck did you get? Tell us a little bit about how you got off the ground.
So when I was working at my local grocery store, I did fortunate enough to be making $17 an hour, which was pretty high in my area for somebody my age. So I would work, some weeks I would be working 40 hours a week while going going while still enrolled in high school. I'd work every single weekend at 6 in the morning. I would work after school almost every day. And then I went and I bought my first truck. It was $13,000. It was a pretty decent truck. Still running to this day, minimal problems. Yeah, so that was the first thing I spent my money on after working at my local grocery store for about a year and a half.
Wow. Okay. So it took you about 18 months to save up $13,000, a little bit, say like $800 a month. And you're able to do that, of course, because you're still living at home and going to school. You don't have like a ton of expenses. And what was the first truck that you bought? Like what truck did you end up buying? And tell us a little bit about like the capacity and.
So it's a Nissan Frontier. It's extra crew cab. I mean, right now what I've been doing, I can load about a large sectional in it. I can pull a trailer, which I do now. It's not the biggest truck you see on the road, but it definitely does the job.
As you reflect back on that purchase, would you have done things differently knowing what you know now? Or do you think it was like the best decision given, your resources and your opportunity? Like if you could go back and do things again, would you buy that same truck? Would you buy something different? How would you start off now?
If I could go back, I would definitely buy a bigger bedded truck. The one I have, again, it's not terribly big, it's not terribly small, but it does run on the smaller side. So I actually am right now looking into buying another truck with a bigger bed and using my truck now to trade in. But if I were to go back, I would keep looking. I was just so excited to get a car. So one of the first ones I've seen, I was like, okay, it's mine.
Got it. Okay. So maybe there could have been a little bit more research or thoughtfulness in that initial purchase decision, but hey, it got you to where you are today.
It did, yeah.
And what about your trailer then?
So right now, I don't have my own trailer. I go to U-Haul and I'll rent their 6x12 trailers, and I can fit about 3 to 4 sectionals in it at a time. So it does the job. I've been shopping around for trailers, but I can't really find one that will fit my needs. I want to make sure it's perfect. It's going to fit 100% of the needs before I buy one.
Mm-hmm. So your next truck must have a bigger bed. Do you have a sense of like how big that bed should be, what the towing capacity is going to be like? You have more of a sense of like what your needs are today. So what do you think that is?
I would have to say, I think my bed right now is about 5.5 feet. I'd want to get one probably 7 or anything larger than that, 7 feet or larger. Towing capacity, I haven't really ever looked into that, but I'm guessing like 5,000, 10,000 pounds.
5 to 10,000 is quite a range and also quite a bit of towing capacity. But if your plan is to haul 6, 7 sectionals at a time, you're probably looking in somewhere in that range. Okay. And tell me how things are going with your business today. So it sounds like you first flipped a couch when you're 16, took you about a year and a half to, get your truck. So maybe you started flipping around 17 and a half, 18 years old.
Yes.
And so you've been flipping for about 2 years now. Did I get that math correct?
You did, yes.
How have things gone since you started? Like, where did you start off? Tell me about, how did you start off? I'm assuming you're still in high school when you started your flipping like side hustle. Like, how are things then compared to how are they going now?
Yeah. So when I first started off and I first got my truck, I kind of spent every last penny that I had to get that truck. So I didn't have a lot of startup capital I could utilize. So basically what I would do is I would only pick up free couches. And at the time I was living in an apartment with my mom. So I didn't have enough money to spend money on inventory, and I didn't have enough money to go and rent out a storage unit. So what I would do is I would pick up free couches and I'd drape a tarp over them and I'd just drive around with them until they sold. I'd pull them out of my truck bed, I'd put them back in, and I would drive around with them until they sold. So some days I would show up to school with a big couch in my truck and people would be like, why is she always showing up to school with couches in her truck? I really wouldn't say anything, but I sold a couple free couches that way, and then I ended up going and getting a 10x10 storage unit, which isn't very big. I could fit like maybe 4 couches in it at a time. So I stayed there for about 3 months, maybe I would just have to say 2 to 3 months, and then I realized that I needed a lot larger space. So I moved into a 10x20 storage unit. I was in that storage unit for about 4 to 5 months, and then since then and now, I'm in 3 10x30 storage units and working out of that, and I'm actually looking into renting a warehouse now. I've toured about 3, and I'm looking into getting into one in the next month or two.
So how much were you paying for storage initial 10 by 10 unit?
$55 a month.
And now that you're touring warehouses, how much square footage, and do you have a sense of like what monthly rent is going to be?
Yeah. I mean, for example, I actually have one right here in front of me. I can just show you like the piece of paper. So this is one of my top picks that I'm looking at. It's a warehouse space. It has water, AC, and electricity. It's 1,920 square feet large, and it would run me about $1,500 a month.
For about 2,000 square feet with all those amenities, electricity, water, etc. That's not bad pricing. Definitely better than anything that, we'd be able to get out in the East Coast from New York. And rental prices in New York City is way different kind of a situation than Nebraska, but that's actually a very solid deal. And what are you hoping to get like out of your upgrade? Like, so 10 by 30, what's that? I think that's 300 square feet each. You have 3 of those. So that's about 900 square feet. So you're doubling the square footage. Yeah. What are you hoping to accomplish via this upgrade to the warehouse?
When I move into the warehouse, I believe that I would be able to pick up a lot more inventory throughout the month. Right now, I'm kind of at a cap. So when my storage units are full, they're full, and I can't pick up anymore. I feel like moving into a larger space would kind of give me more flexibility with the room I have. I would be able to clean up the couches and do repairs inside one space instead of pulling out couches from the storage units. How I use my storage units right now, I'll just flip the couches up on their back and they'll be standing straight up so I can maximize space. But it's kind of an inconvenience when, I need a couch all the way from the back to deliver it, but I have 6 other sectionals lined up in front of it. So I'm hoping to get more efficiency, a little more room to work with, a staging area. I would be able to have a staging area set up and I'd be able to use it all the time. Yeah, that's why I think moving into warehouse would be better for the amount of inventory I get in a month.
And currently, how much are you paying for the 3 storage units?
It is about $450.
About a 2x increase in space, a 3x increase in cost. But I think that what you'll find and what other flippers have told me is that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So when you move into a larger warehouse space like that, it's not simply just a function of the square footage. It's how integrated that space is that allows you to move around in a more convenient and easy way. If you're ever doing showings, it allows you to, bring people around in a nice space to see all the inventory that you have available. Makes it more likely that you're going to close a sale because you can show them multiple couches at the same time instead of, hopping between storage units. Maybe you have a little staging area, a little, kind of showroom area too. And that overall, that when it came to unlocking the potential of their business, that having a space to operate in like this was a big part of their success. And I've heard that from many, many of the most successful flippers that I've come across. So I usually encourage people to take that jump. If they're on the fence, should I move from a storage unit into a warehouse, that, from what I've seen from other successful flippers, that this is actually a key piece of unlocking their success. I think you're on the right track there. Now, on the flip side, it is a 3x increase in cost when it comes to storage, and, $450 to $1,500 is no joke. That's going to be probably under a year-long lease, if not 2, if not 3. How are you feeling about making that level of commitment to your business?
I feel good about it. I think that if I do want to grow any more than I have, if I do want to maximize what this business could become, it needs to happen, and I'm okay with paying more. I have been touring a couple other ones that are a little bit less than that are about the same square footage. So the way I think of it is I just have to sell 3 couches in a month to pay the rent, and that's all I have to do. Like, I'm very comfortable. I have money saved up to fall back on if we're needed, but I do think I would be able to 100% commit to the lease and the rent. And I think it would be a positive commitment.
And how is the business doing today? Like, let's just say in terms of gross sales, what kind of numbers are you putting up on it in an average month?
In an average month, I am doing about anywhere from, I would say more like $13,000 to $15,000 in sales. Profit-wise, around $10,000 to $11,000.
Your net margin is extremely high then. That means, let's say you're doing 15 in sales, 13 in profit, your expenses are about 2,000. That's really, really good. And I've looked at a lot of financials for couch flipping businesses. That means your net profit margin is something like 80%. Some businesses operate more in the 30% range, 30 to 40% range. So they might be doing 25K in sales, but they'll make roughly the same amount that you are in terms of net profit. How have you managed to keep your net profit numbers so high and your expenses so low?
So I would say one thing that really helps me is I still do live with my parents. So besides running my business, I don't have a lot of expenses, like personal expenses. With my business expenses, so my storage unit I did get a deal on it since the owner likes what I do, so he gives me price cuts here and there. So I keep my storage expenses low, my cleaning expenses low as well, because most of the time the cleaning supplies that I need, my mom has. I just kind of pick things I need for the business, and I see if anybody around me has the equipment before I go and buy it. I'm really good at budgeting. I write down what I want to spend, and I make sure I don't go over it, or if I do, then I have to sell more couches. I use the template you provided, the spreadsheet, and my last year's summary, I think it came out to my average of 70% profit margin. So only 30% more expensive.
That's really good. I'm glad you're getting value out of that spreadsheet. And for anyone who doesn't already know about it, Ivy Flip has created a free spreadsheet. It's probably the most advanced financial tracking spreadsheet available for couch flippers today. When I say advanced, it's really not that complex. But you go in there, you log all of your transactions. Every time you pick up a couch and every time you sell a couch, that's one row. And then in a separate tab, you log all of your expenses. And then the spreadsheet will do all the math for you and give you a monthly P&L statement. We'll show you exactly how much you've made each month, how much you've spent each month, your gross profit margin, your net profit margin, and then also some other useful statistics for couch flipping, like what is your average turnover rate, like how long does it take for you to sell a couch, what is your average gross profit per flip, what is your average net profit per flip, what is the average purchase price per flip. And I think this is really fundamental and important for flippers to have a grasp on their numbers if they're going to make decisions about, hey, can I make this investment? How profitable am I? What sort of couches should I be putting money into? Without some comprehension of the numbers in your business, you're kind of shooting in the dark as to making decisions like this. And Kaprese, would you say in your experience that something as simple as logging your finances in that spreadsheet has helped you?
Oh yeah, 100% it has. Being self-employed or making any money that's not coming to you bi-weekly is kind of difficult, because when I go and sell a couch, I could sell it for a few $100s and I could take that money and go and blow it on something I want. So really seeing where the money's coming from and what I'm doing with it really helps me sit down and not overspend in one area or just waste the money away. I have a budget. I'll actually show you. I have this little safe box in my room. But I do the thing Gordon Ramsay always recommends to everybody. So I do envelope stuffing. So I have all of my expenses, which not much. And then on the back of every envelope, so for bills, they come out to, I always round up. So this is my monthly bills are $700 something, but I'll round up to $800 just so I always have a little extra. But I have rules on the back of every envelope, and it says for every couch sold, put $100 in it until $800. I'll stuff that. Inventory, I always like to have $2,000 in my envelope for inventory, so I just do for my rules. For every couch sold, put $200 in. And I'll just, every time I sell a couch, either if I get paid with Venmo or cash, I'll come home and I'll immediately stuff my envelopes. Paying myself necessarily, I'm more focused on saving most of my income because I eventually want to get into owning rental properties and flipping houses and being in real estate. So I'm more focused on saving that money more than paying myself right now, because I feel like doing this, I'll eventually end up paying myself later. So I give myself about either $50 a week to spend on myself, or around $200 a month, if that. That's the stretch.
Okay, wow. I mean, that's very conservative. And that's just on leisure activities. Maybe you go eat out once a week, $50. And then your bills, when you say bills in that envelope, is that bills expenses for the business or personal expenses for living?
It's both together.
Understood. Yeah. And so let's say in total for expenses, you're budgeting that's $700 in expenses for the month, or is that per week?
For the month.
Okay. And so that's because it's $450 for the storage unit, and then gas, and then
gas has its own little envelope. So I guess I kind of split my bills up a little bit, but I use my credit card to pay for gas and gas only. So I'll just make a separate envelope for it, and I put money in here for that.
Well, that's definitely one way to do it. I think the method of putting cash into envelopes is nice because tactile. It's you can feel it, you can see it, and it makes makes the money real, as opposed to sometimes when you're spending money on your debit card, it's just like out of sight, out of mind. And I think that's why Gordon Ramsay probably recommends this method. I haven't heard him talk about it specifically. The one thing that comes to mind that you may find useful is an additional degree of separation between your business finances and your personal finances, because this is really the next step for you. I think as someone who wants to eventually own real estate, this will be important. It's because right now you're sort of commingling your finances. Now, do you have an LLC?
So I actually applied for one a couple of days ago through my state, and they're going to do all the registration for me. And then I am going to be opening a bank account, because that has been a problem of mine that I've been trying to navigate through, is like business expenses, personal expenses. I could find a way to go about it better, but right now all of my business expenses and my personal expenses are hooked up to the same card. So for me right now, it's just easier to put them together. But when I do get my LLC, I will be opening a bank account, a business bank account, as soon as I can. But yes, I do agree that splitting them up is a smarter idea. So right now I was saying, okay, my business expenses and my personal expenses, they're all linked to the same exact card. So it's a little bit easier for me to just put them in one envelope. I do agree that splitting them up in more categories would be more efficient. But since I don't have a business bank account yet without my LLC, I've just been putting them together until I get that. Envelope stuffing and budgeting will get a little bit more complex since I'll be able to split those two things up.
I'm not bringing that up to hold it against you. I think you're doing extremely well for yourself. You're doing better for yourself at your age than I was at your age. I would think 98% of the US population as well, which is part of the reason that I wanted to have you on the podcast, because, you've been an Ivy Flip customer for quite a while. I've sort of kept track of your journey along the way, and I've always been impressed with like the diligence in which you've applied yourself. And I've been kind of noticing like the steps up that you've been taking in your business. And frankly, I think you are just a great role model for like in general for how you have been conducting yourself, but in particular because of your age and also because you're in an extremely male dominated industry. And I think it's good to have some female representation showing that, you're lifting heavy couches. People probably underestimate your ability to do what you're doing, but you do it anyway. And I do want to talk about that. But before we jump in there, here's a practical suggestion for, how to structure your business moving forward so that you have a little bit more clarity into like your overall financial management. So once you incorporate into an LLC, what I would recommend is paying yourself a standard amount every month as salary. Now, that salary can fluctuate. If it's an LLC, if it's a sole proprietorship, right, single member LLC, this is going to be referred to as an owner's draw. So all of the revenue that you're generating eventually is going to make it into the business checking or business savings account. And from there, you pull out a set amount of money every month that you determine is necessary for your financial needs. Right now, you're living at home. And so maybe you say, like, for my personal finances, I only need to take out $1,000, right? Let's say the business is generating $12,000 and you need $2,500 a month to cover the business expenses. Actually, I think in your case is going to probably be more something in the realm of $4,000 to $5,000 a month in free cash flow that you need to support the business. And this is because you're going to end up paying $1,500 in rent, maybe you have another $500 in gas, that's $2,000 there, and then miscellaneous expenses, let's say that's another $500, cleaning supplies, software costs, etc. And then you also need to keep $2,000 on hand for buying inventory, and that cost could go up or down, right? And there may be other miscellaneous costs along the way, like maybe you start investing in advertising, so on and so forth. Let's say you need about $5,000 in free cash flow in the business every month to sustain the business. Then you have whatever amount left over. If you're making $13,000 profit, you're spending $5,000, that means you have $7,000 left over. You pay yourself $2,000 of that every month. That's what you live off of. Everything else you can keep in the business, and you could use that to make investments, right? Like, for example, if you're going to hire a cleaner, you're going to hire delivery drivers, or you're going to make other types of investments, keeping that money in the business allows you to invest it for future things that you want to do to grow the business. I think that's a good thing to do. And now you have $2,000 left over that you're paying yourself out of, and then you can sort of apply these Gordon Ramsay-esque principles to that $2,000, which is I need, 30% for rent or whatever my living expenses are. In your case right now, it's free. In the future, that might change. And then you have 30% for, I actually don't know what like Gordon Ramsay he recommends here exactly, but some percentage of that goes into your like personal savings. And then some percentage of that is for the absolute essentials. And then some percentage of that is for leisure and having fun, right? And so I think the important distinction here is that you actually do want to pull some money out of your business and start investing it and actually in doing something with that money, which is investing it. So you can keep some money in your business to invest in your business, but you can also take out some money to do other things with that money, like, make that money work for you outside of your business, whether that's putting it in the stock market or saving that so you can put a down payment in a house. And if you structure your finances this way, now when you go to the bank to get a mortgage, they can see that you have real income. They're not questioning, okay, where is this money coming from? How are you going to afford this down payment? They can see very clearly you have the LLC, the business generates this amount of free cash flow, but this is also where you're generating income. And this is the big problem for people who are self-employed or who work like 1099 or who are generating income from side hustles. They're unable to prove where that money comes from, and therefore they're unable to go and get money to do other things. And if you want to progress in life beyond leveraging your own time for money, you need to get other people's money, right? And so this is why I recommend this general structure. And, there's not really stuff that they teach you in school. And it's definitely something I've gone through personally as an entrepreneur for the past 10 years, just knowing how to separate your finances and have that paper trail, so to speak. And this is not even to mention taxes, like withholding the proper amount for taxes. So if you haven't gone through that yet, and it sounds like you probably haven't because you're just going through the process of incorporating, then there's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, that's the one thing I'm navigating through right now is properly, like, just the money aspect of it, because when I was starting off, I was still working a part-time job and just doing couches sometimes, but yeah, when I really jumped full into it, I started making money that I didn't think I was going to be making, so navigating where it goes, what to do with it, make it legally, like, sustainable and stuff like that, it's difficult.
Work with the CPA. I mean, rule of thumb here is like 30% of revenue, save it, and that's what you're going to pay your taxes with. I think that's like probably a little bit too much because in like running a couch flipping business, you have expenses and you've been keeping track of all of those expenses using the spreadsheet, and those are deductions when it comes to filing taxes. And so you're probably not going to pay 30% of revenue. You're going to pay something closer to 20% of revenue because you're going to be able to write off all those expenses. Saving at least 20% of what you're bringing in so you don't have an issue come tax time is another really, really big mistake that people make when they're first starting up a business. To the extent that like a lot of people, I think in couch flipping, they don't structure their business correctly. They're not keeping track of their finances correctly. They're probably not paying taxes either, which is penny wise, pound foolish, especially if your long-term vision is to leverage your activity now, your success today into something bigger, like building a real estate empire. If you're just trying to make ends meet and make a couple bucks, then okay, I'll never recommend not paying taxes because the government is very good at figuring out who owes them taxes and getting that paid. They will throw you in jail. But if you have a vision for the future, like a 5-year vision or a 10-year plan, such as yourself, then you got to pay taxes. We can have a conversation in more detail off camera someday if you're ever curious about doing some of this stuff. So I do want to get into this topic of, say, female representation in couch flipping. Like, I'm sure you've looked around the groups, you've looked around the room, and you've kind of noticed that like the other people that are doing in the couch flipping game, they don't look like you, that you're different from the average couch flipper. So how does that change how you think about this industry? How does this change like some of your behavior? How do you feel about like being like one of the few female flippers out there?
That's a good question. I've definitely noticed there are a lot of male flippers, and a lot of the time I get underestimated a lot. I'll show up to somebody's house, pick up a couch, and I'll have a man just straight look me in my face and he's like, "Are you sure you can do this?" Or I remember one instance, I was with my brother and I had a guy look me in the face. He just told me that I could not lift this couch up and I wasn't going to get it out of the house. So kind of a lot of like underestimation in me, and sometimes they're rude because they just don't believe that a girl could do something like this. So I would say just that aspect of it is not so fun, but there are good things. There are like people who see me doing it and they're very impressed because I am a girl doing it. Yeah, I would say there's pros and cons, and none of them really bother me because I'm so determined and I know that I can do it. So I don't really need other people's like validation for that aspect of it. But yeah.
Yeah, and like money talks, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you can doubt me if you want, but like at the end of the day, like I have a 6-figure business and I'm doing it all by myself at my age. So definitely give you a sense of confidence. Now, do you think that there are any strengths or weaknesses that you have, like as a female in the game? Like maybe it makes you a little bit better at certain things, even if like you are unable to lift certain couches, like due to strength? Like, is there like a balance here, like a yin and a yang to, being a female in the game?
Kind of. I would say one thing I struggle with the most when lifting couches is my wingspan. I'll bring my brother around and he'll just like wrap his hands around the couch and I can like barely grip the couch because like I just don't have long arms. But I would say when we're getting the couch out of the house, I don't know if I've just kind of mastered it, but I pay attention to detail. So if we need to tip the couch the one way, I can kind of just look at it and look at the space that we're trying to clear and it just kind of snaps. And I'm like, I noticed this little wall had more of an indent than this one, so we're gonna have to tip the couch a certain way to get it through.
Do you feel like it's almost like an adaptation? Like because you know that you can't maybe physically do some of the same things that your brother or man could, that you have to make up for that in technique. But like what you lack in brute force, you have a little bit more strategy. Are there any other aspects to the business where you feel like having that womanly touch is actually, giving you an advantage?
I would say so. I would say when I'm making sales with people, when I have people come and view my couches, especially when I'm talking to the woman or the wife, usually the mom, there's more of a connection other than just she's buying a couch from me. We kind of connect on a different level. Like she appreciates what I'm doing. I appreciate her because she's a woman. So we'll just sit there and we'll talk and we'll build a deep connection that has actually benefited me a lot. From people I've met a lot of people that have hooked me up with different things like networking. So yeah, I would say really big grow I've noticed is being able to connect with people on a different level than like my brother can. I'll watch him have a conversation with the mom and I'll go have a conversation with the mom and it's completely different.
A little bit more of human touch or womanly touch, if you will. One thing that I've noticed is that when it comes to buying a couch it's a couple in the household, right? And oftentimes it is, whether they're married or they're dating and they're living together, 75% of the time it's the woman who's making the decision, right? If not more. Like, I feel like men don't have as much of it's not something they care about as much, the style of the couch. They want something comfy that they can lay out in. But most of the time, the decision maker is the wife. So other than like being able to connect with them, is there something about like decor or design or trends and fashion and things like that you're leveraging to make that connection with the wife?
Yeah, would definitely say, other than couch flipping, I resell vintage clothing and I also make one-on-one pieces sometimes. That's another source of income I have. So I'm really big into trends and creating unique pieces, styling things together. Like this painting behind me, my friend and I made it. So like very creative, I love piecing things together how it is. So I definitely have a promising say in like what I think would look good, what she has in mind, or what they have in mind and what they want their house to look like. And sometimes I'll go and I will just look for couches like just for that couple or just for that family.
Interesting. So you can take you have that design flair or aptitude and you'll take almost a consultative approach with a potential customer. Now, do you do that in person or are you doing that like on Facebook when you're messaging them? Like, tell me a little bit about your process for understanding what the consumer wants and then being able to deliver that to them.
So it kind of happens, I would say 50-50. It happens on Facebook, it happens in person. Sometimes I'll have somebody come look at a couch and they're like, oh, I just don't really think that's going to work in my space. So I'll kind of ask them a bunch of questions, understand what they want. And most of the time I have what they want in inventory. So I'm like, well, I think this would look really good in your house. We can pull it down and I can show you. And then I show them like little features on the couch or whatever. And on Facebook, I'll have people who see I sell furniture, like multiples of it. So they'll kind of tell me their idea, what they're looking for, what color they want, what base they have, and I'll end up sending them pictures of the inventory I do have to kind of meet their expectations are.
Very interesting. Have you ever taken like a concierge approach where you just have a lead, you kind of know that they're in the market for buying a couch and like then you go like shop around looking for inventory to fit their needs?
I have done that, yes. I've done that with a few customers that have reached out to me, and I've done that with multiple family members and friends. A lot of my friends started moving out, so they'll tell me exactly what they want, and I'll go and do it. Another thing I do, I'll refurbish dressers. I'll sand them down to bare wood. I'll change out the knobs, I'll make them look pretty. So I'll also make one pieces for them. I've done a couple for my friends, like friends' parent, and I've done a few, and I've just sold them my furniture. But yeah, so I definitely will go around shopping for specifically what you want, and then I'll kind of try to upsell them and being like, well, if you're needing a coffee table or a dresser or a table, I also can design it how you like.
What do you think about that? Like, because these are almost different business models. They're related for sure. But one is like having a selection of inventory that people can browse and select what best suits their preferences. And the other is more concierge. It's more consultative. It's more taking into account their tastes and putting together a custom solution. As you grow your business, do you think you want to incorporate more of one over the other? Or, how do you see the balance between the two?
So I definitely think my strong suit is with the couches, but I do in the warm season. So I just started on my first dresser about a couple weeks ago. I'll do a couple through like now until that when it starts getting cold again. I'll do maybe one or two every month or two. So probably like once a month I'll do one. And I kind of just like doing it. It's peaceful. My creative spark gets to like come out. I usually have friends help me. So it's just kind of something that I dabble in, but I don't think I would get 100% in doing it as a strong source of income because it does take a lot of work. It takes hours and hours and hours to finish one dresser, but it's very fun and it can be like relaxing.
Yeah, and we found something similar. When Ivy Flip first started, we were pivoting from a fintech company. And, one thing about the fintech was we were trying to help people get better interest rates on loans through superior underwriting, incorporating data points that your traditional credit score does not take into account. And one thing we'd look at is bank accounts, really. So we'd look at their bank accounts, how much money they have in there. And a lot of them didn't have even a couple $100s in savings. So we're like, how do we help people make money? Well, you got to have sort of a side hustle in 2024 to get ahead. And so we started looking at side hustles. First, we started with furniture flipping. Then we looked at couch flipping. And the one thing we noticed about furniture flippers, mostly women, and a lot of them are kind of like stay-at-home moms even. And it's something that they do while, their kids are at school or, they have a little bit of free time. And they're looking to supplement income, but not like totally replace, it doesn't need to be like full-time income for them. And there's definitely more of this creative and artistic side to what they're doing than just the need to make money. And the couch flippers were sort of the opposite, right? The couch flippers are capitalists. They're mostly men and they really care about making money out of it's not that furniture flippers don't, but it's not as important. And so it's cool that you've had an opportunity to explore both sides in couch flipping and furniture flipping, but your main focus is still on the couch flipping. Now, I have had some very successful furniture flippers on the podcast, Care from Lemons to Lemonade. She has a huge YouTube following, 60,000 people. I'm not sure if you've heard of her. And she actually furniture flipped her family out of medical debt all the way back in the pandemic. It was something like $60,000 with medical debt. And now she has a very successful YouTube channel where she does this content creation around furniture flipping. And so if you're only focused on the business side of things, an opportunity to make that work, just flipping furniture as well. And, she's not the only one. I've had other guests who also dabble in furniture flipping, but they're more profit-minded than creative-minded when it comes to the furniture flips. And I'm curious, have you thought about incorporating other kinds of furniture into your business as well?
A little bit. I actually have. This weekend, I kind of watched some videos online and thought about it myself, but I'm going to be just building a coffee table from scratch. One of those mid-century barn house coffee tables. And I'm going to see if I could sell it. The cost of goods is only $30 with the wood I need. But yeah, I've been wanting to incorporate more hardwood work in my business, but I don't want to have anything overtake the couches at the moment just because I've spent so much time and effort learning about this side of business, and I think that's where I'm mastering right now, and I want to continue to master that aspect of it, get employees under my belt, and kind of make it more passive before I start expanding into more things.
Understood. Another question I have is, do you feel like your awareness of the different interior design trends and what is basically in and fashionable right now is something that helps with your selection of couches and your ability to make money in the business?
I would say so. I would have to thank my age for that too. I'm a victim of scrolling on TikTok when I'm laying in my bed. So I'll scroll on TikTok, scroll on Pinterest and Instagram, and I'll see all the trends, see the colors, the pattern or feel of the fabric, if it's ribbed, subscribed. If it's not, I'm always looking on Facebook, seeing like local people that are doing this. I'll see what they have in stock right now, what they're selling really fast, and I'll kind of just go by that. To understand the trends.
And what do you think is trending right now in Lincoln? And do you think that's different from other parts of the country, or is it like its own unique market, or is it kind of following like what general trends are nationally?
I would say it's following most of the trends. Maybe I haven't really looked anywhere else, like what's trending in a different state, but I feel like gray, tan, and brown are like the ones that when I get a gray couch in, it's gone in the next couple days. I've met people really like ottomans in my area. They like when the couch comes with a matching ottoman. Sectionals for sure. I haven't picked up a couch that wasn't a sectional in a very long time. So I really focus on sectionals. And sleeper sofas are popular, like the IKEA sleeper sofa styles are popular in my area.
Interesting. So, like, let's say you could pick up IKEA sleeper for like $100. What do you think, like a gray IKEA sleeper? You think you could sell it for close to retail?
Definitely not retail. I would say if it's in like mint condition, I don't know, maybe 700 about. Yeah, I got one. It had really deep scratches in it from a cat. I got it for $50. I was like, I might as well go pick it up. I shaved it up the best I could, but it still wasn't in perfect condition, and I sold it for 600. So, I mean, they're in good conditions. Those will still a good place. I'm incorporating something new where the couches, because usually if I went and I sold a couch for a $400 profit, I would kind of just put all of that back into buying more couches. But I'm trying to practice a little bit more and I'm trying to practice on being a little bit more conservative and only putting, say I go buy a couch for 200, I sell it for, I don't know, 600. I'm only going to take that 200 and then reinvest it. And then with the profit, I'll split it up differently.
Yeah. I don't think you've done quite well for yourself in your business, but it's too early to assume that you figured out all the different aspects. And I think you still have a lot of growth to go. So can't be afraid to experiment a little bit, get outside your comfort zone. And one prediction I have for the couch flipping industry in general is I think over time, more couch flippers will build more robust businesses. It's going to stop being like so side hustly and more full time and more legit, like brick and mortar LLC. And I think along with that, they will branch out into other type furniture because it just makes sense. Like if you're in someone's house and they're willing to give you a couch, let's say, and they're moving out and they also have like a dining table, brand name, like a lot of couch flippers will just pass on that because they're like, oh, I don't know if I can make money on it. Like, am I going to sit on this for too long? But you're already there. There's almost like zero opportunity cost other than like having to store it and take photos. And very likely if you get a nice like antique dresser or you get a nice brand name dining room table, a customer who needs a couch who's moving into an apartment, maybe they also need one of those items and you could sell it to them.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I've had customers where I've delivered a couch and they're like, well, do you have a table too? And I'm like, no, but I have access to them. So I'll go get a table really quick and I'll just sell them to them. But yeah, I agree. That's why I've been trying to dabble here and there in dressers and like other coffee tables, side tables, stuff like that, like kitchen tables, but not my main focus right now, but I still love to dabble in it. Like,
well, it's really important to know your bread and butter, your core competency. Like for Ivy Flip, for example, that's sourcing. Like at the end of the day, most of our customers are with us for this core competency of sourcing. But we want to be able to add value in other ways too. And if we can make money on that, like give you a cross-listing product and that helps you out, or we can give you some other educational resources or sales tracking, we want to be able to do that so long as it doesn't distract from our core competencies. So don't forget where you came from and what pays your bills. But if there are other ways to diversify and make money, then I think, it's good entrepreneurship to, sometimes evaluate what those opportunities are, so long as it doesn't trade off with your core competencies. So never forget where you come from, what pays your bills. Okay, so my final question for you, Kaprese, we're running up on time now, is for all the women out there who are interested in getting into the game, or all the other, 16-year-old young people that are interested in getting to the game, what would some advice be for them from someone that has been in their shoes?
I mean, it might seem cliche a little bit, but I would just really say just do it. How I started was watching a YouTube video. And the way I learned was doing it hands-on. I didn't continue watching YouTube videos. I just did it so I could personally learn. I feel like you can watch as many videos and read as many books as you want, but if you are not going to go out and act on it, you will never learn how to do it and how to build off of what you want to do. So I would also just say don't be scared. You are probably going to get weird looks or people are going to doubt you or whatever. But I mean, if you have a goal and if it's in your vision, I believe believe that it can happen as long as you believe in what you're doing. Dedication is number one.
I think it's so important to have this kind of representation. I really appreciate you coming on the pod and sharing your story, because I guarantee you there's someone out there who's going to watch this where your story reminds them of themselves, or maybe, who you are, like, reminds them of themselves, and it gives them the confidence that, if she can do it, I can do this as well. And, I think what you said about learning by doing is also incredibly salient and on point. As an entrepreneur, you're not going to build a business sitting on a couch. You have to go out there and do things, learn from those mistakes. No one's going to teach you this in a textbook, glean some information off YouTube or in these forums, but there's nothing like that hands-on experience of getting in there and actually flipping a couch. So Kaprese, I really appreciate you jumping on the pod today, sharing your story, sharing some lessons from your business. And I think this is going to bring a lot of value to our audience.
Of course. Thank you for having me.